In my experience coaching both kids and adults, when I ask a kid to swim faster compared to when I ask an adult to swim faster, two totally different strategies. Typically, when I ask a kid to swim faster, they just start moving their arms faster. When I ask an adult to swim faster, typically arm speed doesn't change at all, and it's more in force application. So they just try to pull harder. Now, this is a mistake that I made when I first started swimming. I actually remember the day the coach stopped me and said, "Corey, stop swimming in cement." And I had no idea what he was talking about at the time, but looking back at it now and looking at some of the adult swimmers that I work with, it's really apparent where not changing or not being able to change your stroke rate, only requiring on more force, what tends to happen with more force is more muscular fatigue, which then leads to stroke breakdown, which then leads to you losing the hold of the water. Eventually, you get to what looks incredibly painful, an inefficient arm pull as hard as you can. That looks like swimming through cement. So we are going to play with your stroke rate a little bit today, get you swimming more like kids. Now, a lot of this training is going to be neuromuscular in nature, in terms of those brain-body signals, how quickly they're being sent, the coordination of the muscle contraction. Being able to do everything quicker does cause a little bit of breakdown in your technique, but today we're going to be taking basically one step backwards to hopefully one day take 2 steps forward again. So the main thing that we need to be concerned about when we're talking about stroke rate as adult swimmers, at least using a low stroke rate, is deceleration. Because water is so much more dense than air, and we've covered this in the last video when we talked about that slight acceleration from the catch to the finish. When you are not providing force to move yourself forward, you are decelerating substantially because water is so dense. So these long glides, you're slowing down, which requires you to accelerate back up to speed every stroke. That acceleration takes more effort than it would to maintain your speed, which would be accomplished by more frequency of power application, higher stroke rate, and potentially with the higher stroke rate, you can provide less force. If you've ever ridden a bike before and played with your pedal speed or your cadence or your RPMs, you know that if you want to hold a particular speed or produce a particular amount of power, you can do it with a slow pedal speed with a lot of force, or you can do it with a fast pedal speed with a lot less force. No difference in the water, except in the water, again, we're trying to overcome the deceleration forces, which are substantially more. So, looking at my stroke rate, a couple of things to consider. One, when you're counting strokes within a particular distance or in a pool, it's going to be impacted significantly by the turns. So if you're using a smartwatch to try to figure out stroke rate in a pool, it doesn't work. If you're swimming open water undisrupted, great. Use the watch. You'll get pretty accurate stroke rates. If you are looking just for stroke counts within a particular distance, again, remember that those walls will have an impact. So if you're pushing off and kicking farther off one wall, it's going to result in a lower stroke count per distance, whatever that might be, 25 yards, 25 meters, could be a 50 as well. But leaving those walls will have an impact. So you need to be consistent with that if you are really trying to gauge it by stroke count per distance. The best way to count is strokes in relation to time, which again would be stroke rate. So how many strokes do you do in a particular amount of time? Eventually, we're trying to extrapolate that out to a minute. So for example, if you are swimming in a 25-meter pool, it takes you 20 seconds to get from one end to the other. You probably want to have someone counting for you for about 15 seconds. How many strokes do you do in 15 seconds? Multiply that by 4, and now you have your stroke rate per minute. That is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to do yourself because you don't have eyes on a watch unless you have some smart goggles. So again, if you can get someone to do that for you, that's going to be the best way. Again, unless you have a pair of goggles that you can keep track of time and count at the same time. Whew, that's a lot to ask. So looking at my stroke here, as I leave the wall, I'm doing a long kick, long glide, so I'm going to have a lower stroke count on the way down here. I'm also at a slower stroke rate, so a lot longer glides, more force through the arm pull. And this equates to about 15 strokes in this length. On the way back here, if you're counting 2, 3, I do 17 strokes. Primarily, I didn't change anything to my stroke. It's primarily related to the distance I glide off the wall on the way back. So again, those walls come in handy. In terms of stroke rate though, again, I would pick say 15 seconds, count it out, and that would be my stroke rate. Now, if you're using any tools like fins or paddles, that's going to change your stroke rate as well. So just be aware of that. Obviously, I'm able to maintain a little more velocity with the help of the fins. This can also help with your force application where you're pushing yourself more with the fins. You can go a little lighter on the hands. And then we go to a high stroke rate. Now, I am also putting a lot of power through here, so I'm sprinting now. And you can see the difference if you don't change the force application. So if I'm going to go high frequency, high force, I'm sprinting. However, I could do this with the same or similar stroke rate, so still fast, but pull maybe it's half as hard and maybe go the same speed as I was doing with my slower stroke rate with stronger pull. And I may find over time that that's my Goldilocks zone and that's where I'm going to go the fastest. But looking at, again, a high stroke rate, high force is obviously going to result in your fastest swimming, but I'm not going to be able to sustain this for very long. I might have had a 25 in me. This is just under 15 seconds per 25, and we'll count out the stroke rate on the screen there. So today's workout, that's all we're going to play with. So let's have a look. So depending what level you're at, there may be different distances or set schemes, but the workout is all the same. First, we're going to jump in, do a little bit of choice swim, so mix it up as you like. Then we're going to revisit some of the drill work that we did in previous workouts. So we're going to go back to practice that asymmetry or beware of any asymmetries or imbalances in our stroke. So we're going to start off with the one arm drill, fin on one foot, arm you're not using up, stroking with the arm on the same side as the fin, just trying to fire that kick and arm pull timing at the same time, and just pay attention to the coordination. How's the kick setting up? How's the roll coordinated? How's the arm pull coordinated? Is one side better than the other? And again, if you can pick out any imbalances, great. It's good to be aware. Keep working on it. Then we'll move on to the one paddle, one hand work. So freestyle, just paddle on one hand, no paddle other hand. Practice or think about what the paddle hand is doing in terms of arm path, coordination, force, etc. Is it different from one hand to the other hand? Start with your dominant hand, so you can start with your good hand and then see how the dumb hand does. And then again, are there any differences between the two? Then we put it together, one fin, one paddle, same side, swim it out, see if there's any differences. Moving on to the main set, this is where we're going to start playing with the stroke rate. And again, this is just experimenting. See how it feels to go a lower stroke rate or slower arms, more force, all the way up to fast as you can move the arms, as little force as you can apply possible. So play with the spectrum, and ideally over time we'll find that Goldilocks zone of what is optimal for you. And hopefully we can actually increase your stroke rate so you move from a one-speed swimmer to maybe a multi-speed swimmer, and you can do it on both force and frequency. So that'll be the goal. So the set is 4 50s, where each 50 is going to be a little faster. So slow arms on the first 50, so low stroke rate. Next 50 a little faster, next 50 a little faster, next 50 the highest stroke rate that you can hold. Again, your technique may go to shit. It's okay. We're going to take one step forward to hopefully go 2 steps. No, one step back. Yeah, there we go. 2 steps forward. Let's just keep going forward. Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. Then we're going to move into a swim, 100 or 200. Again, if you're on the lower level, it might be shorter. And you're just going to swim at different stroke rates. So the first time through, again, low stroke rate. Then you go back to the 50s, do the build 1 to 4. The next 100 or 200, you're going to swim with a little higher stroke rate. Then you do the 50s again, back to the 1 or 200, higher stroke rate. So hopefully you get the idea. You're just trying to acclimatize to faster and faster stroke rates and experience what that feels like in the water, moving from low to high. And that's it. A little bit of cool down, and I will see you in the next workout.